sources this morning at 10:30 were reporting that Kentucky Senator Rand Paul was being detained by the TSA, the Transportation Security Administration, after refusing to take a pat-down from TSA officials at the Nashville International Airport. Those news sources were alerted by a tweet from his father, Texas Representative Ron Paul. TSA said Senator Paul was treated like every other passenger that it processes. Passengers refused to complete the screening process can't be granted access to the secure area in order to ensure the safety of others traveling. U.S. security officials denied that Senator Paul was detained by the agency for refusing to be patted down. Instead, they said the senator was escorted out of the security area after his refusal. We will have more on this as we get it. And now to live coverage of the U.S. House here on C-SPAN.
The House will be in order. The chair lays before the House a communication from the Speaker.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., January 23, 2012. I hereby appoint the Honorable Virginia Fox to act as Speaker pro tempore on this day. Signed, John A. Boehner, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Pursuant to the order of the House of January 17, 2012, the Chair will now recognize members from lists submitted by the majority and minority leaders for morning hour debate. The Chair will alternate recognition between the parties, with each party limited to 1 hour and each member other than the majority and minority leaders and the minority whip limited to 5 minutes each. But in no event shall debate continue beyond 11:50 a.m. The Chair recognizes the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Cohen, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This weekend, a movie opened in America that is really unlike any other movie. A significant movie because it is about a group of gentlemen who won the Congressional Gold Medal, the Tuskegee Airmen. They were the first black airmen in the United States military history. It's part of black history, but beyond black history, it's American history. Because as I watched the movie yesterday in Memphis, and a largely African-American crowd, I realized this was a story about America's progress in fulfilling its promise, and about the problems we've had and we had to overcome. The Tuskegee Airmen were men that wanted to fight for their country in World War II. And they weren't allowed to because of segregationist policies that we had at the time. The military wasn't integrated, and they didn't think African Americans were capable of serving as pilots and weren't allowed to do so. So they had an experimental group set up in Tuskegee, Alabama, at Tuskegee Institute, to train black Army personnel who wanted to be pilots. They succeeded, and they formed the Tuskegee Airmen. They had many obstacles, but they beat the odds, and they succeeded. They rose to the challenge. They dispelled myths that African Americans weren't courageous enough, weren't skilled enough, weren't smart enough. On Friday, at the request of the family, I spoke at the funeral of Lieutenant Colonel Luke Weathers, Jr. Lieutenant Colonel Weathers was from Memphis originally, died in Tucson, Arizona at age 90. He was one of the first Tuskegee Airmen. He was buried on Friday at Arlington National Cemetery with full military honors. His family present, 7 horses, 6 drawing the carriage and the riderless horse, a military flyover, 21-gun salute, taps. An American hero being laid to rest in hallowed ground, sacred ground, Arlington National Cemetery. Lieutenant Colonel Weathers not only had to fight the Germans and fight for his country, he had to fight his country to be able to accept and benefit in the basic rights that we all take for granted. To learn about Lieutenant Colonel Weathers and the Tuskegee Airmen is inspiring. And during Black History Month, we reflect and we celebrate other struggles and accomplishments of many African Americans in our history. African Americans who came here in about 1620 as slaves and didn't get freedom from slavery until 1865, and then didn't get real freedom until Jim Crow laws were overturned in the 1960s. And the vestiges of slavery and Jim Crow still live with us. Those who overcome those obstacles and broke down barriers were heroes and need to be recognized and will in the month of February. At one time they said African Americans couldn't play baseball, and Jackie Robinson showed them wrong. They said African Americans couldn't be quarterbacks. Doug Williams and others showed them wrong. They couldn't be coaches. Bill Russell took the Celtics to championships, and Tony Dungy in 2007 won a Super Bowl championship. Couldn't be pitchers. Certainly couldn't play tennis. Well, Arthur Ashe showed them wrong. Golf, nobody in the world better than Tiger Woods. And you know, it's amazing that in this day and time, there's still barriers to be broken. At one time, people thought that an African American couldn't be president of the United States, wouldn't be capable of such. Well, we know that's wrong. But unfortunately, there's still people in this country who think that the president can't be their president because of his race. Some even refer to him as a food stamp president. We know that code is wrong. I would ask anybody who thinks that way or has those thoughts to know that they're backwards thinking, just like the people were in the 1940s that said that black people couldn't participate in our military and couldn't fly for our country, and that the Red Tails couldn't shoot down the Germans and protect our bombers as they did. Those days are past. I would ask everybody to see the movie, remember the Tuskegee Airmen, realize how far our country has come, and get beyond any bigotry that we have in ourselves. This is a nation of tolerance and diversity, and we must celebrate it. I encourage everybody to learn about black history, and the Tuskegee Airmen are a great vehicle. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. McClintock, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Long ago, Jefferson warned that the natural progress of things is for liberty to yield and government to gain ground. The exceptions to that rule have been few and far between recently, and they ought to be celebrated when they occur. As one did just this past week with the announcement that supporters of the so-called Stop Online Privacy Act and the Protect Intellectual Property Act have indefinitely postponed their measures after an unprecedented protest across the Internet. SOPA and PIPA pose a crippling danger to the Internet because they use legitimate concern over copyright infringement as an excuse for government to intrude upon and regulate the very essence of the Internet, the unrestricted and absolutely free association that links site to site, providing infinite pathways for commerce, discourse, and learning. It is not the Internet per se that sets the stage for a quantum leap in human knowledge and advancement, but rather the free association that's at the core of the Internet. And this is precisely what SOPA and PIPA directly threaten. But as dangerous as this concept is to the Internet, it pales in comparison to the danger it poses to our fundamental freedoms as Americans. It is true that rogue websites operating from offshore havens are stealing intellectual property and then selling it. We already have very good laws against that, as evidenced by the arrest yesterday of Mr. Kim Schmitz and his associates in New Zealand, who stand accused of operating one of the biggest of these rogue sites. Theft of intellectual property is fundamentally no different than the theft of any other kind of property. It should be taken no less seriously than the thefts perpetrated by the likes of Bernie Madoff or John Dillinger or Willie Sutton. It is no different, and it should be treated no differently. In every such case, it is the individual who commits the theft. It is the individual who is culpable and the individual who's accountable to the law. And it's the individual who is also accorded the right of due process, including the presumption of innocence while he stands accused. That's what SOPA and PIPA destroy. Upon mere accusation, These measures would allow the government to shut down websites, ruin honest businesses, impound property, disrupt legitimate speech, and dragoon innocent third parties into enforcing laws that may or may not have been broken. When property is stolen, we hold accountable the individuals who knowingly commit the act and place the burden of proof on the accuser. The accuser must demonstrate to the satisfaction of a jury that the defendant stole property or that he received property that he knew was stolen. Yes, it is a ponderous system. Yes, it means you actually have to provide evidence. Yes, it means you have to convince a jury. Yes, it means we can't catch and successfully prosecute every criminal. But the experience of mankind over centuries has proven that this is the best possible way to protect the innocent and protect our freedom while also punishing the guilty. And in part, we punish the guilty to discourage others that we might not be able to punish. And as the arrests yesterday in New Zealand prove, it works. Let Mr. Schmitz and his confederates be extradited and then let them have their day in court. Let evidence be presented. Let a jury be convinced of that evidence. And if convicted of one of the greatest thefts in human history, let us mete out the full measure of punishment provided by the law to stand as a fearsome example to others. This doesn't and won't stop all theft, and it isn't perfect. But to replace it with one where mere accusation can bring punishment or inflict ruinous costs upon innocent third parties would introduce a despotic and destructive concept that is antithetical to the ancient rights that our government was formed to protect. The developments of the last few weeks have saved the Internet and saved these fundamental principles, at least for now. But Jefferson was right that the natural order is for government to grow at the expense of liberty. That's why we have our Constitution. And to the protection of that Constitution, the Internet has now empowered its rightful owners, we the people, to defend it more effectively than ever before. Which leads me, Madam Speaker, to conclude that because of the events of the past week, we will see many more victories for freedom in the days and years to come. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Thompson, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise today to honor the career of an Eagle Scout who is planning for retirement after 17 years of distinguished professional service to the 37 years of distinguished professional service to the Boy Scouts of America. Bruce Trip McWilliams will retire as the Area 4 Director for the Northeast region of the Boy Scouts of America. Bruce McMillan received his bachelor degree from Montclair State University. He's a Vigil Honor Member of the Order of the Arrow and a Wood Badge recipient. He has staffed jamborees, camp schools, and countless training events. His career serving America's youth began in 1975 as a district executive in Wayne, New Jersey. Since then, he went on to serve as a Scout executive in Maryland, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Tripp was then promoted to the Northeast Region Area 4 staff in 2001 and Area 4 Director in 2008. In all capacities, Tripp has served with great distinction, earning the respect and admiration of all he has served over a remarkable career. Congratulations to Tripp and his devoted wife, Diane. Madam Speaker, I am honored to recognize a friend and scouting professional who has touched the lives of so many youth in his service to scouting. Well done, Scouter. And I yield back to balance my time.
The gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Harper, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am deeply disappointed by President Obama's decision to deny TransCanada's application to build the Keystone XL pipeline. I know that many of my colleagues in the House, members of the Senate, and citizens across this country share my disappointment and near disbelief. I say near disbelief rather than complete because while an approval of the application made sense to so many, I had a feeling that the President would continue down a path of making political decisions instead of decisions based on merit and what is best for our country. Much like the knee-jerk reaction and decision to shut down drilling in the Gulf of Mexico after the Deepwater Horizon explosion on April the 20th of 2010. Instead of shutting down the negligent parties involved in the explosion, the President shut down an entire industry for 6 months, and then it took almost another 6 months before the first permit was issued. Almost a one-year delay that cost thousands of families to lose their jobs. While the President may talk about energy independence, I question whether he understands the role that oil plays in our economy and will continue to play in our nation's energy portfolio. Even worse would be if he does understand and is just making political decisions. The application for Keystone XL has been pending for over 3 years, and even though history shows that these types of applications generally take 18 months to approve, the President said that a February 21, 2012 deadline imposed by Congress did not give him enough time to properly review this application. The Keystone XL application was pending for twice as long as a normal application. The President's argument about not having enough time to make a decision to approve the project is weak at best. The application was filed more than 3 years ago, and a final decision on whether to let the pipeline go forward was long, long overdue. Unfortunately, I believe that the wrong decision has been made. And if he didn't want to approve it for environmental reasons, I wonder if thought was given to the fact that China wants the oil if the United States does not get it. And that means putting the oil on tankers, which we know would have a much more negative impact on the environment than pipelines. Mr. Speaker, the United States needs the Keystone XL pipeline. In his first term in office, the President has loosely talked about the need for energy independence. Keystone XL could help provide the United States with the certainty of almost 1 million barrels of oil a day. And that oil comes from our friend and largest trading partner, Canada, and not the Middle East. At a time when the price at the pump continues to fluctuate, in part due to uncertainty in the Middle East, I cannot understand how the President justified denying the transport of friendly Canadian oil to our Gulf Coast refineries. You know, when the President took office in January of 2009, did you remember that the price of a gallon of gas, the average price was $1.83 a gallon? On January 23, 2012, AAA reports that the current average is $3.83 a gallon. The record was the highest annual average price for a gallon of gasoline ever in our nation's history was set in 2011. A major factor in recent high prices is continued political tension in the Middle East and North Africa. These events have threatened or disrupted huge quantities of oil, causing great fear among investors. It is beyond evident that America needs relief. The President has struggled with turning the economy around since taking office 3 years ago, and his speeches often center on the subject of jobs. Mr. Speaker, I hope that the President realizes that his denial of Keystone XL, that this application is costing our country tens of thousands of jobs. An analysis by the Perryman Group, an economic consultant in Texas, has demonstrated the tremendous job-creating potential of this project. It is the reason that 6 major labor unions have signed project labor agreements to construct the pipeline. These are good-paying American jobs that union members are eager to fill. However, instead of issuing the necessary permits to begin construction of the pipeline and putting Americans to work, the administration drags its feet for over 3 years, and at the end of that time denied an estimated 120,000 Americans jobs to provide a way to support their families. Pro-business groups like Americans for Prosperity and the Chamber of Commerce support Keystone XL as a way to give a much-needed boost to our economy. Pro-labor groups support Keystone XL because they know it will create jobs. Our country needs the Keystone XL pipeline, and we need those jobs. We need cheaper gas at the pumps, and I'm committed to working towards alternatives to get it started. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from North Carolina, Ms. Fox, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, unemployment is still at an all-time high, and the high cost of energy is having a significant negative impact on my district's economy as well as on the economy of the entire country. But when President Obama had the opportunity to help job creation and lower energy costs, he turned his back on hardworking American taxpayers. And as my colleague from Mississippi has just spelled out, we have just seen the highest energy cost ever in this country last year, and the cost of gasoline itself has more than doubled under this president. President Obama has done all he can to stand in the way of businesses that can help get Americans back to work. The Keystone XL pipeline, a $7 billion private sector infrastructure project that will create 20,000 jobs with its construction and an estimated 100,000 indirect jobs during the life of its operation. For the 3 years that President Obama has been in office, he's delayed this project for political benefit in order to placate his liberal base. Liberals who oppose this project say that these jobs are temporary and somehow of less value. This is not just misguided but insulting. All construction jobs, by their essence, are temporary. No construction project is permanent. It's a dangerous precedent these groups are setting by denigrating hardworking Americans for the type of work they perform. The President is in full campaign mode. He's more interested in protecting his job than allowing the private sector to create jobs. Mr. Speaker, we cannot continue to import energy from Middle Eastern countries. North American energy will lead to energy security, lower energy costs, and more jobs for Americans. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Okay. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess until 2 p.m. today.
And that wraps up morning hour speeches in the House. Members will gavel back in at 2 p.m. Eastern with two non-controversial